Today, we consider this House resolution expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that Iran should immediately release all detained U.S. citizens, as well as provide all known information on any U.S. citizens who have disappeared within the borders of Iran. As always, I appreciate the support of the ranking member, Mr. Engel of New York, in bringing this resolution to the floor. And I also want to acknowledge the author of this measure, Congressman Kildee of Michigan, as well as those members who continue to stress how important it is that this body speak out on this issue. These citizens need to be allowed to come home now. These are U.S. citizens. In particular, I wanted to thank Mr. Deutsch, who's here with us today, a senior member of our committee, and he's been consistently focused for many years on the case of his missing constituent. 2 weeks ago, the Foreign Affairs Committee held a hearing at which the family members of 4 Americans, 3 in prison and 1 missing in Iran for 8 years, testified. This was the first time all 4 of the families came together for such a hearing. We heard and saw the excruciating pain that they are living with day in and day out, not knowing if and when they will see their husband or their father or their brother again. Each of these tragic cases underscores the lack of justice and, frankly, the brutal treatment that these Americans have faced in Iran. Jason Rezaian is a journalist who was born and raised in California. He had hoped to use his position at the Washington Post to present a greater understanding of the Iranian people. Instead, he has been arrested on trumped-up charges and has been held for over 300 days at the infamous Evin prison. Last week, a second closed hearing in his trial was held, which, like all other aspects of his case, was shrouded in secrecy. In September of 2012, Iran arrested and later sentenced Pastor Saeed Abedini to 8 years in prison for gathering with others to study the Bible, which, as his wife told the committee, is in fact a lawful act, even under Iranian law, but one which the regime deemed a threat to national security. So in jail, his guards have attempted to coerce him. They have tortured him to try to get him to renounce his faith, telling him otherwise he'll serve even longer time. In August of 2011, Amir Hekmati, who is a former United States Marine, was sentenced to death for alleged espionage. This is someone who went to visit his family, his grandparents. Upon appeal, his sentence was reduced, by the way, to 10 years. As his sister described to the committee, her family was told by Iranian officials not to go public with Amir's imprisonment, or he would be put in even greater danger. Well, as she described to us through tears, despite their silence, Amir suffered extensive torture, beaten on his feet with cables, tasered repeatedly in the kidneys. At home, his father is gravely ill, but locked up, Amir can't travel back to see his father. In 2007, Robert Levinson went missing on Iran's Kish Island. 8 years later, Iran continues to refuse to assist the United States in locating him. As his son testified, his father is now the longest-held hostage in American history. Mr. Speaker, the House stands in solidarity with each of these families. Our hearts break for them, and we share their anger and frustration at the desperate position they are facing. And as we approach the deadline for negotiations on a nuclear agreement with Iran, one that, no matter what the terms, will require us to have at least some trust in the regime, I have to ask the question: what do these 4 cases say about the regime we are dealing with? If a journalist can be suddenly imprisoned on bogus charges, what treatment can international inspectors for Iran's nuclear program expect? But more fundamentally, if top Iranian officials can't be counted on to assist these wrongfully jailed American citizens, Can they be counted on to honor the commitments they make at the negotiating table? This, by the way, is why verification is such an important part of an agreement. But on that question, can they be counted on? Call me a skeptic. I also have to ask why the administration, on the brink of silencing a deal in which we'd give the Iranians tens of billions of sanctions relief, is failing here. The bottom line expressed in this resolution today is that these 4 Americans must be allowed home now. And that's a sentiment that all of us can support, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from